There we go. Finally.
Shouldn't it be on my live stream?
I don't know what you're talking about.
If I'm on the channel, shouldn't and it would go to okay, there it showed up.
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did. All right. We're good. Hey.
I had to
Technology's
do
great
it.
when it works.
Well, I had to do some weird wonky thing to finally figure it out. But anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter.
All right.
The problem is I have to do some back door stuff to try and make it work. But anyway, at least it's going on YouTube. So, whatever. So, I'll try and look in at the comments in a little bit. But yeah.
All right.
So, we're live, I guess, on YouTube on our channel. I will try and find the comments after a while. And we'll see if anybody pops up or has anything that they want to talk about tonight. But this is our James Bond ranking series, a few minutes later than we intended, but we are live, so we can move ahead. We have been teasing this for 8 months, and I think we started working on watching all 25 movies about this time last year. I got through all 25. Did you?
No.
What ones did you not get to?
The last 3 Craig films.
I thought it was 4, but you didn't get to Quantum, you didn't get to Skyfall, you didn't get to Spectre or No Time to Die.
We got through part of Skyfall.
We watched the opening scene. That was 12 minutes out of a 2.5-hour movie.
That's part.
Okay. Whatever. Anyway, you have seen all of these films at least once before, but this was just supposed to be a rehash.
I've seen them each at least once, if not. I have not seen No Time to Die other than the one time I saw it at the theater.
I have rewatched it once before this, and then I kind of got through most of it again today, or at least trying to, just to refresh my memory. That to me is probably the hardest one because I remember coming out of the theater and feeling so personally betrayed by the film. So it's really hard for me to feel, I don't know, much of anything about that film. So it's a little bit weird. I'm hoping that I have it in an accurate place. It was a lot better than I remember. I'm hoping that's reflected in my rankings. But as I've said many times on our own program, when we're not doing this live and when we have much better editing than the no editing that I'm going to do now, I have mentioned that my love for James Bond comes from a summer I spent with my grandparents for a couple of weeks where I was at home during the day and they were not. So I had to have something to do. And we went to their local library and rented, I think, 3 different Bond films: Goldfinger, Dr. No, and Diamonds Are Forever. It might have been 4 because there might have been Live and Let Die in there as well. And my first experience was Diamonds Are Forever, it's hard for me to be objective about that one because that's like so personal to me, being the first one that I popped on, because I had no idea in what order they were supposed to be or anything like that. But I got into a lot of trivia contests about James Bond in high school. I had a couple of friends who were like big James Bond fans. One particularly who has since passed away, rest in peace. And so when the Craig films came out, I watched each one of those in the theaters. They were all important to me for various different reasons. And it's something that I have shown an affection for years. But only after about 2014, 2015, when I was watching one of those marathons when it used to be, or it might still be, Spike TV, which used to be
Yes.
like TBS Superstation or whatever it was. Did you say like it was like a Father's Day James Bond marathon or something? And I just had it on all afternoon. And you mentioned to me that this is really easy, casual viewing that I kind of enjoy. And so
Yes.
since then, at least in my opinion, we've had kind of this mutual appreciation, particularly in the Craig era, because we both think that he's pretty far up the rankings. If you don't have him probably number one, he's probably in the top 3 of Bond actors, at least to this point, of the 6
Yes.
that we've had. I don't think that for most people that's terribly in debate. I think he's probably the most gifted actor to ever have played the part, but that might be beside the point. And he's clearly the only one that's, with the exception maybe, I guess, of Sean Connery doing some stuff after the fact and winning an Oscar, he's probably the only one that's really had a stellar career after playing Bond.
Correct.
So I guess, what is your relationship to the character and the franchise and all of the other stuff that we were mentioning?
When I was a kid, we still had the weekly movie, or the movie of the week. Every network had one, and so the various networks would have their films, and so it was invariably that about every 3 to 6 months, one of them would have a Bond film on. So I remember sitting and watching um, Goldfinger, Doctor No, the spot, or From Russia with Love, Moon, or let me think here. I'm not sure. The early Bond, or the early Roger Moore, might have been The Spy Who Loved Me. These were all on a regular basis. You Only Live Twice.
You want to talk
Um,
into the mic?
you you Only Live Twice. I'm trying to remember, but remember watching these a lot, either by myself or with my dad when they were on.
See,
So
I guess I'd never thought of Grandpa as being a big Bond fan. Obviously, my other grandfather, who helped introduce me to the character, he has a lot of the, I wouldn't say first edition, but like very early on paperbacks of the Bond novels.
when I was
But
a kid, yeah, when I was a kid, my dad would go to bed and read for a while, and
okay,
he had a ton of these little paperbacks. So I think he may have had a few of the Ian Fleming novels. He did is it James McDonald? He did a bunch of these
could be.
crime thriller spy novels.
Okay.
They were light, easy reading. He would sit and lay in bed and read for half an hour or so before he'd go to sleep. Um, he stopped doing that eventually, but
Not
for
really. He had a ton of Grisham novels and Ludlum novels and
he
whatever else that I picked up when after he'd passed away.
he stopped reading and then started reading again once he had retired.
Mm, okay. Well, either way, both of us have a long history with the character, with the franchise, and we've enjoyed many of its iterations. I would say that some are better than others, quite clearly. I
Yeah.
think through most of the 80s, Bond was pretty bad, and that's why most of those are going to rank near the bottom, at least on my list.
Oh, yeah.
And while the 90s brought back some of that fun with Brosnan and such, I think the Craig films kind of resuscitated the character and its importance in the franchise and such for a lot of fans, where it wasn't just a relic of the past. And so I'm very curious to see what they'll do next now that we've transitioned away from the old guard and the Broccoli's and Michael Wilson to whatever we're going to get with MGM and Amazon and Bezos and all of the other creative, I guess Bezos isn't exactly a creative, but the people over there, now that they've taken over, and more specifically, they've gotten probably the second best director, if you go by accolades, that they've ever had in the chair. So I would only give it to Mendes because he's got an Oscar. But
Yeah.
Denis Villeneuve is right up there, given the
Yeah.
Dune series and its popularity and some of his other films. I would say he's a gifted artiste that obviously can do franchise work.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Where do you go from here? How do you bring Bond back after he died?
Well, the one thing that I would say, you're obviously just going to completely reincarnate the character. You're going to completely redo it, whatever else. To a degree, the fact that Bond died and the Broccoli's are gone, it kind of puts a chapter ender on that entire era, and you can kind of go any way that you'd like. But knowing Villeneuve and all of his movies, he has yet to do anything like light or fun, I guess in that way. It's a lot more heavy drama.
Yeah.
And some of those are really good. Like I really love Arrival. I love the Dune series. But there to me is going to be a grounded grittiness to it at all times. I think he can definitely work with the character, but the Roger Moore cheekiness of the 70s and 80s, and even to a degree, kind of the quippiness of the Brosnan movies, is not likely to be there. It's going to be much heavier end of Craig era Bond, would be my guess. Much more serious, much more action set piece and such of that nature.
I'm sure. And I'm sure they'll figure out something as far as the first part of this goes. But in looking back on these, it's amazing how every time there was an actorial change and a new Bond, the first film was great. The next film was pretty good, if not great. And then it slowly started to evolve into just a hot mess.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where it'll end up. I guess
You still
I'd
have
hope.
25 films before it. If it's not at all good, what does it matter, I guess?
Yeah,
You just don't get more. Or they can recycle it after a few more years.
I'm
Like,
sure.
let's not be precious with everything. They could surprise us. It could be very good. It's not like at the end we were terribly elated by the Bond films either from the Craig era. So, like,
I know.
but let's jump into the actual rankings here. We have both put together our list of 25. I have rewatched all of them. You've rewatched most of them, like 80-ish%, 85%. You also printed out the critics' Rotten Tomatoes scores for each of these. So let's start
Correct.
with the bottom 5. What are the bottom 5 according to the Rotten Tomato critics?
A View to a Kill.
Yeah, okay.
The Man with the Golden Gun.
All right.
Now I eliminated the two non-Bond films from this.
Yes.
So 3 is Octopussy.
Okay.
4 is Die Another Day. And 5 is Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay. Now, we're just going to quickly run through until we kind of get to our top 10. But would you like to start or would you like me to give you my bottom 5?
I'll go first. Die Another Day is my bottom. It's the
Okay.
least plausible. It's makes no sense. It had points of being boring and at times and nonsensical. Actually, the next one I have is Octopussy. I saw it in theaters and thought it was terrible. There was nothing interesting about it. When I found out it was based upon only an Ian Fleming short story, I'm like, obviously they kind of ran out of ideas. My number 23 is A View to a Kill. And that was the first one not based on an Ian Fleming novel, and it was horrible. The only reason I give it better stars than Octopussy is Grace Jones and um,
Christopher
Walken,
Walken.
Christopher Walken, were just phenomenal. And it's the only song from
Duran Duran.
Duran Duran that I could stand. So at least that part made it better. Number 22, even though it's probably better than I remember it, it just pissed me off so bad. And it was such a fucking letdown. I Have No Time to Die, because it
Okay.
just, the way that ended, it was just, couldn't you just package it up and give us a present as he goes out? No, you have to make it into a bloodletting, and it just it destroyed any quality of the film. And then number 21 for
Talk
me,
into the mic.
number 21 for me is The Man with the Golden Gun. It is terrible. It makes no sense. I mean, other than slapstick with Hervé Villechaize, trying to do weird things on screen, there's no point of the film. I mean, it's just terrible. And to think that why am I drawing a blank? Christopher Lee was supposed to be, or was originally the one that Ian Fleming wanted as Bond. He was terrible. He was a horrible villain. I thought there was nothing maniacal about him. I thought there was nothing interesting about him. I think he played the part kind of bleh. And so that's 21.
Okay. So when I asked you to read it, I thought you'd just read off your top 5 instead of having a paragraph about each of them, but that's all right. We can still manage.
You're froze.
Because Frank,
I got nothing. Well, now I guess I get the reins of the show to myself for a few minutes till Tom can figure out what's going on and come back in. Apparently, his internet is unstable. So I guess I could put up the signs of technical difficulties. I could go na 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 to see, as we're waiting for him to return. So I am curious to see what his bottom 5 are. So we will see. So anyway, I know that, like I said, my dad was a big Bond fan, and I grew up watching. Welcome back.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when we use the internet in the office.
Yeah, I know. Oh, well.
So how much of that was actually on the channel?
About 3 words when you started talking.
Okay. Wonderful. So going through it, we have the same bottom 3.
Okay.
In a slightly different order. I have Octopussy because it was the one that made me the most bored. It was the most ridiculous plot of any of them. It had very little character development. I think I napped twice during it and had to keep going back or repeat viewing. A View to
Uh,
a Kill was very similar, but I'll give it the same credit that you basically did. But there's a stretch in the middle of the movie. It's just like, why? Who cares? What's going on? It's just, yeah.
yeah.
Then I had Die Another Day, the most illogical of any of the plot lines, even in this era of plastic surgery and makeup. If I describe and forgive me, any of the plot of this movie, if I just went up and said, the plot of a spy movie is that a North Korean dictator general's son, who's maniacal, gets plastic surgery to become a white British aristocrat. Everybody would think I was nuts, but somehow it made it into a Bond movie for who knows why. It is the most ridiculous, fanciful, whatever. It is by far the worst Pierce Brosnan movie. And then I have
And that's saying something.
the other two, let's say Dalton movies. 22, I have License to Kill. Better than I remembered it. Like, I want to say there's a tier. Those bottom three for me are so bad that, like, I never want to put them on again, kind of bad. But then, like, the Dalton movies, only if you force me to watch them do I really go back to them. They're not as bad, but they're still not good. And Living Daylights at 21. He's not even that bad of a Bond. He's just, the writing is just bad. And the characters I don't give a shit about.
Well, and that's the thing. Actually, and we'll get to my rankings on those two films. I thought they were better than I had remembered when I saw them the first time, simply because I think Timothy Dalton actually was not a bad Bond. It's just he had shit to work with.
Well, the side supporting characters, and they don't develop him much as a character either.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I'll say about the Craig Bond is that at least they kind of gave him a little bit more of a backstory, tried to flesh something out, gave him some motivation.
Yeah.
And they even did a little bit of that with Brosnan, except for the last film. But yeah, I don't know. All right, so I have 4 80s films out of those five, and then that abomination in the middle of the 2000s, which thankfully reset the franchise. All right, so then I'm going to go to my number 20 here, and I'll just try and read these off quickly. I have another 80s one with Moonraker. Then I have another 80s one, For Your Eyes Only. 18, Dr. No. 17, The Man with the Golden Gun. And 16, The World Is Not Enough.
Okay. For me, I have as 20 Spectre.
Oh, okay.
Christoph Waltz is the only thing about it that I thought was good. I thought the plausibility of it wasn't that great. Um, I just it just I was so looking forward to it, and I just kind of left going. It was okay. So I have Doctor No as 19. It's by far. I mean, it is boring.
Yeah.
It really.
As
I
a
mean, it was.
rewatch, it's
Yeah.
difficult to get through.
Yeah. Um, 18, I have The Spy Who Loved Me.
Really? Okay.
It's
That one
probably,
that
yeah,
was one that moved up for me on rewatch. I'll say that much.
okay.
I put it in kind of this like campy Moore era and didn't give it enough. And I know for some people that's like peak James Bond for them. And that's what they grew up on is that particular movie. And it so highlights so many of the tropes that are eventually used in like Austin Powers. But I don't know. For me, that one always sat weirdly, but on this latest rewatch, probably 8 months ago, for whatever reason, went higher on my list. So, okay, that's an interesting one.
Well, having gone back and rewatched these, the Roger Moore films are much less enjoyable at this stage in my career or my life than they were when I was growing up with them. I just don't care for the campiness.
I know some people love it. It's just not necessarily for me. I like a slightly grittier spy crime thing, but I mean, it's got to. I don't want it so heavy that it's No Time to Die at times. Like that one was just so heavy to sit with at all times that you're like living with the consequences of every action you've made up to that point. But anyway, continue.
17 Moonraker,
Okay, so we had overlap somewhat there.
16 Thunderball.
Wow.
I just don't care for Thunderball. I didn't think it was that good. I thought it was.
Okay.
I thought the plausibility wasn't great. I mean, I thought the graphics were terrible at the time, and I don't know, just didn't think much of it.
The underwater sea battle and the constant quick cutting is, what is it, seizure inducing?
Yeah.
Like, if you were an epileptic, I think you'd have a problem with that movie. But outside of that, I think a lot of the pieces of that still work pretty well for me, and it's going to be higher up my list. But you have two in there that I think are a little bit surprising to some because those are some favorites.
I know, but again, it's my subjective thoughts. For Rotten Tomatoes, Moonraker is 20.
Okay, that stands to reason. I mean, for everything that the previous film is, and they kind of tried to recreate The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker is not. It's supposed to be basically a repeat of the movie, and it's just not good.
19 is Diamonds Are Forever.
Okay.
18 is Spectre.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people really hated that movie.
17 is Quantum Solace.
Yep, Quantum of Solace.
And 16 is Live and Let Die.
See, and this is where I personally deviate. I think Live and Let Die, well, we'll get to it, but I think it's Roger Moore's best of the
franchise. I know. I have
it
much higher. And then 15, no, we already have gotten through.
So keep going. You might as well.
All right. 15 is For Your Eyes Only.
Way too high. It's a film that I enjoyed multiple times, and the final, I guess, battle on that weird rock-shaped cliff or whatever they're on was fine when I was younger, but this latest rewatch, I'm like, this is just bad.
Well, that's about where I had it. So then the next one would be Living Daylights.
At what number?
Would that be 14?
I don't know. You're the one reading the list.
Well, yes. I had to take out one. So 13 would be
12.
Or 12 would be You Only Live Twice.
Okay.
And 10, grab 2 pages, sorry.
11.
Yep, I know, I'm sorry. 11, License to Kill.
You can see why I added these, folks. Also, 11 for License to Kill? Did they not watch the film? Oh, that's just...
Yeah, well.
I'd much rather watch several of those over License to Kill. Anyway. All right, so what's your 15?
For Your Eyes Only.
Okay.
14 is License to Kill.
Okay.
13, The Living Daylights. 12 is The World Is Not Enough. 11, Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay. So you and I had the same number 11. I also have Tomorrow Never Dies at 11. But my 15 is going to be controversial. I have GoldenEye. I know that most people would put it like number one, but the lowest ranked Rotten Tomatoes one, Tomorrow Never Dies, is my number one Brosnan film, which I'll give credit. Brosnan was never my Bond. I grew up more with Connery than I ever did with Brosnan, even though I'm a 90s kid. But I didn't start watching Bond until he was basically done with the franchise and it was kind of moving on to the Craig era, and that was kind of my guy. So Brosnan never really did it for me. I thought most of the movies were kind of campy. And I know there's a lot of nostalgia for GoldenEye, particularly with the video game and such, and everybody going gaga over that. But the movie itself, eh, leaves a lot to be desired as far as that. It's got those weird campy characters, and I just, yeah. To me, Tomorrow Never Dies was a much better, succinct, well-written film. And I know that critics will not back me up on that one, but yeah. All right. So my first Craig era Bond film to make the list, I have 14. I have Quantum of Solace, 13 Spectre, and 12 The Spy Who Loved Me. So there are certain films that we know have not crept all the way up the list, but you had No Time to Die, I think, at 20. Is that right?
Uh, no, 22.
22. And it has not yet been read off my own list. I think this is the benefit of having the rewatch, because the theater watch and your expectations and everything that you had going into it and the gut punch of the end of the film, I think muddled what the quality of it may have been, because it's a much better quality film than I think we were thinking about in the moment. We were thinking he would go off on a high, and it left off on this weird whimper with him dying, which is just not something that I would have thought ever would have happened to James Bond. But yeah.
Yeah.
So just to recap on my list: 25 Octopussy, 24 A View to a Kill, 23 Die Another Day, 22 License to Kill, 21 The Living Daylights, 20 Moonraker, 19 For Your Eyes Only, 18 Dr. No, 17 The Man with the Golden Gun, 16 The World Is Not Enough, 15 GoldenEye, 14 Quantum of Solace, 13 Spectre, 12 The Spy Who Loved Me, 11 Tomorrow Never Dies. And your 25 through 11.
No Time or Die Another Day. Excuse me. Octopussy. 23 is A View to a Kill. 22, No Time to Die. 21, The Man with the Golden Gun. 20, Spectre. 19, Dr. No. 18, The Spy Who Loved Me. 17, Moonraker. 16, Thunderball. 15, For Your Eyes Only. 14, License to Kill. 13, The Living Daylights. 12, The World Is Not Enough. And 11, Tomorrow Never Dies.
All right. I think what we should do is, like our friends from the Best Picture cast, create a composite rankings between the two of us and put that up on the letterbox when we're finished here. But what is your number 10?
You Only Live Twice.
Oddly enough, that is also my number 10. And I think that was like in the middle teens here for the Rotten Tomatoes list.
Yeah.
All right. So You Only Live Twice at 10. Kind of campy. I think it's got some enjoyable set pieces to it. I think traveling to a kind of new location, being in Asia for the first time, was interesting. The volcano lair has been obviously deadpanned by Austin Powers, but it was kind of novel in the moment. And it's the first reveal of Blofeld on film, so this was supposed to be the end of the Connery era and transitioning into us to whatever was next. He obviously came back for one more. But I think it's a fun film, but it's below some of the other ones' level of quality.
Number 9 for me is Quantum of Solace.
Okay.
I think it's a better film than what a lot of people do.
It's not a bad film. It suffers from the writer's strike that was happening at the time. Like, quite clearly, the plot fizzles out after the premise. It still is a more complete Bond movie than a lot of other ones. Craig is still good in the character role, and it's got a lot of really good action set pieces. But if you're looking for plot and character and some of the other things, especially because it's the first one that directly, I guess, is a sequel to a previous Bond film, all of them had been somewhat serialized up to this point. This is the first one that really carries over. You would have hoped that the writing would have been stronger. And while it's a fun and enjoyable movie, and frankly, anything in my top 14, let's say, I will easily return to. And some of the other ones, like even Dr. No, I will occasionally put on. I like The Man with the Golden Gun a lot more than most people. I don't think it's nearly as bad, but there are stretches of that movie that are just boring as soup.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's one that I have no problem leaving on the minute it's on cable somewhere, but it's also not one that I'm like seeking out to say, oh, you only live twice. Let's watch that right now. And it's certainly not one. Nothing except those in the top 5 would I suggest to anybody else as like their first Bond film. Okay. So then you gave your 9. What is the Rotten Tomatoes 9?
They have Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Okay.
The Spy Who Loved Me.
No, just stop.
All right.
We're doing these one at a time. That's why I said the number 9. Okay. My number 9, and this is only based on the rewatch. There is a lack of fun to a degree in this movie. It's still got some amazing set pieces. The quality of work in the film is quite there, but it just ends on such a sour note. Like you're shuffling out of a funeral almost, that it's hard to put it anywhere much higher than some of the other ones that are just more fun for me to repeat and revisit. But I would have probably had this near the bottom like you when we walked out of the theater, but with the hindsight and now a couple of revisits, No Time to Die is my number 9.
Okay. Number 8 for them is The Spy Who Loved Me. Number 7 is No Time to Die.
No, just so what's your 8?
Oh, my 8?
Yes.
My 8 is From Russia with Love.
Okay. I have that higher, so we'll save the discussion for that.
Okay, number 7 is No Time to...
hold. I haven't given my 8.
All right.
God.
Okay. All right. You changed it up in the middle.
We talked about this before we went on air.
Okay.
My number 8 is Thunderball. So we both had it on our list. What was Thunderball for you again?
16.
All right, so it's your 16. And has it come up on the Rotten Tomatoes list so far? I don't recall hearing it.
Must have. Because it's not in the bottom portion.
Some grade A podcasting here.
Well, I'm sorry. You asked me a question and I have to go back through all the pages that I had.
This is the problem when you print on hard copy, old man.
Yeah, well.
All right.
Well, so far, assuming I'm not finding it. So
that's why I said I don't recall you having said it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
So it's somewhere higher on the Rotten Tomatoes list, but it's my number 8. It's your number 16. You already said you just...
Oh, excuse me. It's number 6. I missed or it was spilled over on the page. So
anyway, there are parts of this movie that I think are very fun. I think that the villain fits to what you're looking for in a Bond villain, where it's kind of campy but kind of menacing. They have a good mixture where they're just not like this world domination, egomaniacal, I want to take over the world or I want to destroy the world and build my own new world kind of villain. It's a little bit more grounded. Their ambitions are a little bit smaller. It is very Cold War heavy for the time in which it was made, and some of the context of that probably doesn't relate as well or date as well. But I think it's still a fun movie. There are pieces of this movie where it could have used an editor or cut out some parts. And again, my biggest issue is probably with the final battle where it gets so quick cut heavy because they were in an era where trying to film underwater and doing action shots and the rest of that would have been really difficult and really hard to do. And what they got for the time in which it was made is impressive, but it's still not like a water battle would have been today.
Yeah.
So by that standpoint, I have it at 8. The critics had it at number 6. I don't have much of a discussion, but you had it at 16. You have your reasons. We'll leave it there. All right. So what was their number 7?
No Time to Die.
Okay. And so I said that was my 9 and it's your 22.
Yes.
I don't think we need to say anything more that hasn't already been said here. My 7 is Live and Let Die. As I mentioned before, I think this is Roger Moore's best film. I think it's the most grounded. It's the least campy. It's where he feels the coolest instead of like he's winking at the audience constantly. In this one, at least, it feels like he's somewhat of James Bond yet to me. And so, yes, it's the ending to this is a little blunted and whatever, but the villains are pretty good. You've got multiple different. Baron Samedi is a impressive villain. You've got Whisper. You've got all sorts of people in here. Dr. Kananga. So I find this to be a much more fun movie. And if you're asking me to go back to one Roger Moore film, this is the one for me.
My number 7 is GoldenEye.
Okay. So I had this lower, and I think we have not heard it on the Rotten Tomatoes list yet. I shouldn't have asked.
Yeah, I know. Must have had it at some point because it's not in the next 5.
Okay.
So, the Rotten Tomatoes at number 7, they had No Time to Die.
We already said that.
Yeah. So,
anything more you would like to add on your number 7?
No. Part of it's my own bias, which is I tried to look at each one of the Bonds and try to figure out what I thought the best one was and put that towards the top and then rank from there. And then tried to kind of interplay because I'll be honest, my list is Craig and Connery heavy at the top.
Sure.
But I thought, like I said, I thought Timothy Dalton was a credible Bond, not a likable Bond or that you really thought his performance was great, but I think he did an adequate job. It was a little bit more grit and a little bit more what you thought Bond was with Connery than Roger Moore and the wink to the camera all the time. So, but that's where I am with that. So I had for 7 was GoldenEye. My number 6, you ready for that?
I guess so.
All right. I have on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Same here.
I thought that film, the first time I saw it, it just was so odd to me because it wasn't Connery, it wasn't Moore. Then I didn't watch it for a number of years until we watched it again about a decade ago. And I'm like, this isn't that bad. And Lazenby is not that horrible of a Bond. In fact, he's pretty good. If he could have acted a little bit more, I mean, he had no acting experience. It would have been a really decent film or a really good film. And as it is, I think its quality is pretty darn good, and so I have it as 6.
If they had made this into a true narrative arc through the course of the books, instead of just kind of jumping around a lot, and in the way that Sherlock Holmes builds up to revealing Moriarty, and it's like these subsidiary characters underneath, they would have probably gotten to like 11, 12 films before they really played the Blofeld card. But that's what you can't do in a book series, or that's what you can do in a book series that you can't do in a film franchise. And so they had to play their card really early. From Russia with Love is already Spectre involved, and Spectre's technically in Doctor No. So they're kind of leading to that point already early on. Because on Her Majesty's Secret Service really establishes why there's such animosity between the two characters, is that by the end of the film, because it's the only other one where it ends on such a dour note, is because he gets married, he finally gives up the service only for his wife to be killed. And so then he goes right back into the service for his country. And it's supposed to kind of have that bitter taste in your mouth so that by the time he comes back around. But you've already seen Blofeld basically tackled the movie before by Connery, and then you see him in the movie after. And so I think some of the nature of this movie is
Mhm.
blunted for the audience, and because it's made stylistically different, it is different than any other Bond movie that you look at, just in how it looks, how it feels, the acting performances. It's just very different. I think it's still a very good one, but it is also my number 6 because I think it's a little bit undercredited. I think it's a very good Bond film that needs a little bit more unearthing for some people.
Okay.
All right, moving to number 5. What is the Rotten Tomatoes number 5?
Their number 5 is Skyfall.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. This is where I'm going to go very personal. I have Diamonds Are Forever here. I know that the critics don't like this one. It is very far down the Rotten Tomatoes, but this is somewhat of a personal vote for me. I think it's the right mixture of 70s camp with kind of the old James Bond cool and sophistication and whatnot that you still got with Connery. And so for me, if there's an era where there's one that it's just kind of goofy, it's a little bit idiosyncratic, this is the one that I will pop on more than any of the others.
For my number 5, I have Live and Let Die.
Okay.
I think it is by far the best one of the Roger Moore films.
All right. That was my number 7. The critics had that much further down. I want to say that's in the middle teens for them. All right. Your number 4.
My number 4 is Casino Royale.
Not the Woody Allen one, right?
Correct. Not the
Okay.
Woody Allen one, which I saw
I refuse to
35,
watch
40
it.
years ago and
refuse
was
to
not
watch it.
impressed. So no. This is the Daniel Craig one from 2006. So
Okay.
for
So the Rotten Tomatoes list has what at number 4?
Casino Royale.
So Skyfall and Casino Royale at 4 and 5 on the Rotten Tomatoes list. They're wrong. Just period. But my number 4 is From Russia with Love.
All right. Okay.
I don't think you've said that one yet.
Yes, I did. That was 8.
Oh, that was your 8? Okay.
Yep.
So I guess we could talk about it here. Of the Connery Bonds, I think this is my number 2 of the period. It is a drastic improvement on Dr. No. It gets closer into what we've deemed the fully actualized Bond that we get to in the film that is my number 3, and that would be Goldfinger. And we're on our way to getting there. And it's much more interesting because it's kind of got this old age espionage in Istanbul, and the train sequences with Robert Shaw are impressive. It just is missing just a slight bit of what I think is the Goldfinger essence that really brings out the character once and for all. And then we kind of are set off with Thunderball and you only live twice and Diamonds Are Forever from that point on. But I think this is a very fun Bond movie. I find it to be very enjoyable. There are a couple of sequences that may be a little bit too long, but it's really not too bad. And I think it all fits in under 2 hours. So this is one I would suggest to a lot of people if they haven't watched Bond before. It's not the quintessential ones that I would point people to, but this is an easy recommend for me.
Okay. And for number 3, I have Diamonds Are Forever.
Interesting. Okay, so you had it even higher than me, who has gone on record to say that they have a predisposition towards that movie.
It's one of my favorite Bond films. In fact, I can watch this anytime because I don't know. I just find it both funny and entertaining, as well as just enough of a gritty Bond to make it worth watching. It's just, I know that a lot of people did pan it because it didn't have a lot of special effects, didn't have a lot of stunts. They spent a large portion of their budget on paying Sean Connery to come back one more time. And so they didn't have a lot of extra money to be spending. But what they made up, or what they lacked in that aspect, I think they made up for it in the actors and the storyline they were able to establish. And so it's one film that I find the movie one of the more fun ones.
Agreed. All right, and I gave my number 3 was Goldfinger. That has not come up on the list yet for you or Rotten Tomatoes. I have a feeling that's going to be the number 1 Rotten Tomatoes movie. But what is Rotten Tomatoes number 3?
Dr. No.
What are they thinking?
I don't know. I don't get it at all.
I mean, it establishes the template for the character. It creates the James Bond theme, but it's for such long stretches of that movie, it's just boring.
I know. I don't get it.
All right. Your number 2.
I have Skyfall.
Okay. So you must have Goldfinger 1 then, which
Mm-hmm.
I think to a lot of people, that's a credible one. My number 2 is also Skyfall.
Okay.
And what is the number 2 for the list?
From Russia with Love.
Okay. So From Russia with Love, interestingly enough, according to the critics, is the number 2 there. It, for me, was my number 4, and it was your number 8. So
Yep.
all within the top 10. I think it's credible to say that it's up there. Skyfall was the number 5, and it is both of our number 2s. You didn't get a chance to really rewatch it, but I think it's unmistakable the quality of this movie.
Yes. I mean, I loved it while I was watching it. It went fast, even though it was a longer film. I watched it again with you later and still thought it was great. And there's nothing that's changed my opinion since. I think I've watched it one or at least 3 times, if not 4.
I think it's probably the second best written story of any of them, partially because it's not relying on some of the storyline, but it's trying to make the character relevant again.
Yeah.
And for a character that's been struggling since they got away from the Ian Fleming novels, to have that kind of as its back pocket and make not only the character but the actors important to what the character was. I mean, Raul Silva and everything that Javier Bardem is doing in that movie is like top-notch villainy for this franchise. Like, he's probably in the top 3 or 4 villains that you could probably say.
Yeah.
He's a terrific actor. And he's going against another terrific actor in Daniel Craig that we've mentioned multiple times now. But then you also have an Oscar-winning director in the chair who's done plenty of good work. You have Deakins doing the cinematography. It's probably the best looking Bond film that I could say. The quality is all there to mash it up. The difference to me in this one, why I have this number 2 and not number 1, as a lot of people I think would, is that the character that Judi Dench plays from M is basically 2 eras. It's the Brosnan era and it's the Craig era, or a half of the Craig era. And you have to care a lot more about that character specifically for this movie to make that ending appealing much more to you. Whereas and this is where I'm going to get to my number 1. Casino Royale is my number 1. That one hits more for me because I think the stakes are higher. Within a very small window of time, you care about Vesper Lind and his relationship to Vesper in a way that I don't necessarily care about any other Bond girl in any other movie. And so by extension, I just feel like the stakes are higher. And the way that that movie ends, even though it's somewhat bittersweet, it still ends on that really cool motif where we get him finally introducing himself. He's earned his stripes, he's gone through his battles, and he's earned the right to be James Bond 007 by the end of the movie. With Skyfall, he's kind of more or less earning the right to continue being James Bond. And so there's a little bit of a separation. When you're measuring with sheer degrees, for me, that's maybe my separation. But for me, if you're asking me to go back to any one single Bond film, it's Casino Royale, then it's Skyfall, and then Goldfinger after that.
Okay.
And your number 1 was Goldfinger. I have to assume the Rotten Tomatoes also had the same thing?
Correct. For me, Goldfinger was the film that got me into Bond. When I was a kid, watching that multiple times with my dad, I probably watched Goldfinger 5 or 6 times before I was out of grade school. So it is by far the quintessential. It just, there was everything about it was just cool, from the golf game to the clothes that Bond's wearing to the whole scenario of what was going on. And really one of the best names of any Bond woman, Pussy Galore. Yeah.
It is by far the most iconic Bond film that there is. It is probably the most notorious film plot of any of these movies. Auric Goldfinger and Odd Job and Pussy Galore are just part of the cultural lexicon. If you know anything about this franchise, this is the one series or the one movie that you really associate. If you ask, what does James Bond drive? An Aston Martin, that comes from this movie. All the Q gadgets and everything are established in this movie. So there's so much here that creates the backstory and the character and what is established as being James Bond, or what is the identity of James Bond, is through this film. I have absolutely no problem with anyone that puts it 1. I have more of an affection for the new age stuff because they're just a little bit more exciting for me. I find them a little bit more thrilling, but I have absolutely no issue at all ever putting on Goldfinger. If you're telling anybody to start the franchise, this is the film you start with. Because I wouldn't point them to like the new Craig films and then say go backward. No, you start with the older stuff and then you move forward. So if you're starting anywhere with a new fan or whatever, always start with Goldfinger. That's your introduction to the character. That will make everything else make sense from there.
About a decade ago, I used to have a question. I'd go up to people I knew, guys, and say, who's the coolest person in the world? And I said, before you answer, you can give me any name. And unless you get it right, I'm going to give you the correct name. And then you're going to go, oh, yeah, you're right. And I never lost the bet. And I'd say, they'd give me a name. They'd say, it's so-and-so, it's so-and-so. And I go, no, it's Sean Connery. Because Sean Connery was the epitome of Bond. He had that aura about him, even as he went. Then he had a second career and was voted in his early 70s, I think, as the sexiest man alive. And yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to have been Sean Connery at that point in time?
Hard to debate that one. So, just a recap on my top 10 here. I had You Only Live Twice at 10, 9, No Time to Die, 8, Thunderball, 7, Live and Let Die, 6, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, 5, Diamonds Are Forever, 4, From Russia with Love, 3, Golden Finger, 2, Skyfall, and 1, Casino Royale. And your
And
10?
for let me go through the last 10 here. For Rotten Tomatoes, I have 10 was or Goldeneye, 9 was Her Majesty's Secret Service, 8 The Spy Who Loved Me, 7 No Time to Die, 6 was Thunderball, 5 was Casino Royale, or excuse me, no, Skyfall, 4 was Casino Royale, 3 Doctor No, 2 From Russia with Love, and 1 Goldfinger. For me, 10 You Only Live Twice, 9 Quantum of Solace, 8 From Russia with Love, 7 Goldeneye, 6 On Her Majesty's Secret Service, 5 Live and Let Die, 4 Casino Royale, 3 Diamonds Are Forever, 2 Skyfall, and 1 Golden Finger.
Goldfinger, not Golden
Excuse
Finger.
me, Goldfinger.
You're mixing
Sorry.
Golden Eye and Goldfinger.
Yes.
Or maybe it's Gold Member.
Yes.
All right. So, anything to wrap up this series? We've got 25 movies here, 2 that we don't recognize as being actual Bond films, and eventually a 26th on the way somewhere.
I know.
It's going to be a while yet.
They got to figure out what they want to do with it. I'm sure there's lots of conversations in Amazon about this right now.
Yes and no. So first off, again, based on the director that they picked, this movie's not coming out for another 3-ish years. Because right now, Denis Villeneuve is trying to finish Dune Part 3 and put it out before next year's Oscars. So that's going to be top of mind. After he's finished that, then he will move to the Bond film. So that means the entire next year is going to be something else for him. And then, only then, will he move into the next phase. I don't know who's going to write it, because I don't think he writes a ton of his own movies. But who knows what that will be. And then they got to cast the lead actor, which they've already dropped some hints that it's going to be nobody that we're guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I hope, the only thing I hope is they do what they failed to do with Star Wars, which is actually create a storyboard where they kind of give a framework of where the franchise is going to go, and doing each individual film separately.
I would rather they go back to the serialized version where you can just pick up each one individually and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. For that matter, it had been proposed by Roger Ebert 30 years ago that Bond be done as a time period piece, that it be set in the 60s, so that you could do the goal or the whole Cold War era yet.
While I think that might be an interesting way of developing the character, it would be kind of pushing back directly on the Craig era that said that we can still have modern spies, and that spies are, and field work and agents and the rest of it are still very important. And frankly, all of global politics and what we do anymore is fought by black ops people like James Bond, and has more relevance than ever. So I think there is room for the modern spy era, but I want to see them write something that's worthwhile to go see. I don't mind them taking their time, especially because we've had, I think Spectre was in 2015 and we got No Time to Die in 2021. So we've had one Bond film in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm okay with them taking more time if they really need to. It's not affecting my life. I still have the other ones to go back and rewatch at any point, and obviously
Yeah.
I did this year. But this was a fun project, even though it took a lot longer than we were expecting,
Yeah.
and one of us didn't finish.
I have a lot going on.
Priorities, Dad. Priorities.
Okay, then I'll give up earning, you know,
That's not your choice. You made other choices in other places. Anybody that
I
says
guess.
I don't have enough time or I'm too busy just made different priorities. Anyway, any other parting thoughts here?
Um no. But every time we do this show and we start talking about some aspect of things in the longitudinal consideration, it always comes back to something I started doing years ago with my dad.
It's why the
So
studio is named
I
thusly.
know, I know. It's when you're growing up and you're a teen and then you're a young adult and you really are questioning the relationship with you have with your father, which I did at one point in time. Now you look back on it and realize that there was more of a bond there than you ever thought about. It just took a little bit more effort to figure it out. So, on that note, I hope I hope you appreciate the relationship we have, and I appreciate as we finish up this 2025. Um, uh, looking forward to the next season of the podcast and what we've accomplished so far. That I just want to thank you for involving me in this and including me into this journey.
Of course, you're welcome. We do have some stuff still coming up, but this is our last official recording piece of content that we're going to do for this calendar year. We have one more live show next week, that being the 5th, where we're going to discuss all of our holiday menus. And if you've been following it all on Instagram, you've seen probably quite a few of them and some of the other pictures that we've put up so far. I have been doing a poor job of keeping up with all of the content, but you
Yeah.
know, it's not my strong suit. I feel really dirty every time I do it. That's part of my problem that I guess I have to get over. But we also have our first episode of the season coming up on the 14th of January, so we won't be gone too terribly long. And that's going to be Sabotage, where we're going to have on Cinemus Mike Emmel to discuss a Alfred Hitchcock. I don't know. Could you call all of them classics? I guess.
At this point in time, anything Hitchcock touched is a classic, and that includes the television show.
Okay. I'm not sure I necessarily agree on that across the board, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. Sacred ground for you. But either way, that's going to be coming up here. And then I think the week after that, we have Little Miss Sunshine with Heather Stewart coming up on the 21st, will be the release date for that. So, few of the GMOAT episodes still coming through. Even if we are not giving you the normal Wednesday content, you can still find plenty of stuff out there in the ether for us. But you can follow us again at GMOAT Podcast, wherever you get on your social feeds. You can find us on our YouTube channel at GMOAT Podcast, or you can find us at RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMOAT Podcast, which is the host for the website of everything that we do, including our complete long list and several other pieces of content. We just recently finished up the Cinema Legacy poll. If you were not following that, you can certainly catch that there or on any of our socials. That's been a multiple months project that we just finished up, and we're starting to consider what the next phase of that's going to be for this coming year. And then finally, you can find us at our email, greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Send us any of your comments, feedback, otherwise. If you enjoyed this ranking series or caught it after the fact, we would appreciate knowing. But we're not going to keep you too long. This is somewhat of our break for the year. We usually try and take a little bit of time in between the holidays. And while we're giving you some of these live episodes that are definitely a little more unvarnished,
Yeah, okay.
We still do appreciate spending the time with all of you. And again, look forward to coming up here in the new year. We're going to have some new stuff coming soon. But that'll do it for us tonight for this live episode. No musical cues or anything else, but we'll just